Hello again, welcome back to another video. Today I am trying something new and attempting to do a reading vlog all about Kerrigan Byrne's The Highwayman. The reason I say attempting is because I've discovered I'm really not very good at this whole reading vlog thing. So the reading vlogs that I've seen on YouTube are basically people like read a couple of chapters, talk about it, read a couple of chapters, talk about it, read a couple of chapters, talk about it, intermittent cutting in of scenes from their life, making drinks, making tea, going to work, whatever they're doing. I don't know. I don't read like that. I sit down and I read. So I will usually finish a book in one, maybe two settings at most. I don't really read like a couple of chapters and then take a break and then read a couple of chapters and then take... That's not my reading style at all. I binge books. I get into there and I do not come out until it's finished. Especially if your book is as good as this one. If your book is as good as The Highwayman, I am not going to put this down till I finished it. And I think it took me about 2 days to finish it. And that was trying to stop myself reading it. That was trying to put pauses in there and give myself kind of time to think about it. If I hadn't have done that, I'd have just read it in one go. It was insane. It was that good. But anyway, I have got some footage that I filmed as I was going through, which takes me up to almost the end of the book, and then I'm going to come back here and I'm going to update you on my final thoughts and the end of the book and how I feel. I also want to say in advance, I really did try to make this a non-spoilery reading vlog, and that just went out the window. There is no way I could talk about all the things I wanted to talk about in this book without spoiling the shit out of it. Sorry. I am going to do a January roundup, probably two actually because I've got so many books, where I will talk about it and I won't spoil it and I won't talk about any exact details. So if you'd rather read that. If you'd rather listen to that, then subscribe and give it a few days and that'll be up. But if you don't mind some spoilers and you don't mind me talking about the book, if you've read it, if you want to know what my thoughts on certain bits were, then stick around because I will get to that. But I tried, I'm sorry. I couldn't do it. I also want to take a moment to show you my new t-shirt, Feeling the Burn. This is from XOXO Lady Whistledown on Etsy, and this was, I think, inspired by the girls on the Romance Book Squad Discord chat. They were saying how we needed t-shirts, and God bless her, she went and made t-shirts, so I couldn't resist ordering one. It came from the US. I think the postage cost more than the t-shirt. It was totally worth it. I also got another one, a red one, that says "The Duke and I are to be married." Fantastic. And then I also actually totally jokingly requested that she design one saying "I am Lady Whistledown," and God bless her, she did. So sweet. So I actually have two of those. I have one for me and one for my daughter who really wanted one, and they arrived today, I think. So thank you very much. These are fabulous. I will put the link below if you would like to buy one for yourself and join the Byrne fan club that we're apparently starting. But anyway, enough about me, enough about t-shirts. Let's go and find out what I thought about this book. Okay, so The Highwayman, Kerrigan Byrne. Good morning, by the way. So last night I started reading this and I got off to an absolute roaring start. In fact, so much that I read up to chapter 16, I think it was. That was how much I loved it. I got through this much in one go. I just couldn't put it down. I eventually had to stop because I was just too tired and I wasn't concentrating properly and I wanted to really give it my full attention. So that is quite a long way to go. And I think this is going to be less of a reading vlog and more of a wrap up because I can't just read a bit of this book. I can't just read like a chapter or two and then talk about it. Once I'm in it, I just want to devour the entire thing. So I am working from home today, so I can't read much more now until later. Boo. But I thought I'd very quickly give you an update of where we are to begin with. So let's see if I can remember everything we've read because whew, there's a lot. So first up, the prologue. So I don't know if is it even a prologue? No, technically chapter 1. Technically it's not a prologue, it's chapter 1. And we meet Dugan and Farah, and oh, they're just so cute. They're so adorable. Like, it's such a tragic little beginning for them both. You can tell that there's some more stuff going on than maybe we're seeing. You know, what's going on with Farah? Is she, you know, why is she in this place? Why is she being looked after by these people? Who is she really? She says she's not allowed to mention her name. What is going on? And then obviously Dugan is, you know, just there. He obviously doesn't have anyone to look after him, and he's not used to people caring about him, and they're just so adorably sweet. I should say, I'm going to try and not do too many big spoilers from the book. If I think it's something particularly spoilery, I'm going to put a little alert up somewhere around here, because there are some things I just want to talk about, but I am going to try and keep it vague. It's not easy to keep it vague when some stuff is just like, this was huge. But anyway, so then you jump forward, I think it's like 17 years, and you meet Farah when she's older. Now, I've read Seducing a Stranger, which is book, I think it's like book 7 in the Victoria Rebels series, but it's also the first book in the Good Girls series. So I've already read that. So I've met Sir Carlton Morley before. I know where he ends up. I know his happily ever after. So it was really interesting seeing him from a different angle, seeing him through Farah's eyes, and seeing him as well, like when he's not the villain, is he? But he's the adversary. He's, you know, trying to catch Dorian and trying to like apprehend him and punish him with the full force of the law. So it was really exciting to see him. I was like, it's Sir Carlton, we love him, he's so cute in his book, I adore him. So it was really nice to see him. And he does, I think, mention in that book that he had a bit of a maybe relationship with Farah, so it was nice to see some more of that actually written out. Farah's a really interesting character. I don't know if I was really what I was expecting with her from the beginning, but to find out that she's now living on her own, she's now widowed, she is working in Scotland Yard as a clerk to kind of the police there, and from the back that wasn't the backstory and her kind of path that I thought she was going to take, but it was really interesting. And then obviously you meet Dorian. He's been arrested, he's a baddie, he's a villain, and we all know how much I love an anti-hero. I can't resist them. Traumatised, scarred, broody men who just need the love of a good woman to save them. I am such a sucker for it. So I knew the second I met him that I was just going to love him. And so far I haven't seen anything to suggest that I won't. He is amazing. So I think we need to have a little bit of a chat about dark romance and what do you and I constitute as a dark romance, because I've seen loads of people say Kerrigan Byrne's books are dark romances, and for me, so far at least this one, they're not. Nothing I've read from her yet constitutes a dark romance. For me, a dark romance is where the romance itself is dark. So yes, Kerrigan Byrne's books deal with some pretty dark themes. They have, you know, sexual assault, kidnapping, violence, child abuse. These are dark themes, these are traumas, they are horrible things to talk about and they are horrible things to live through, but the romances themselves aren't dark. At no point do I feel that the relationship between the two people is, you know, a dark romance for me would be a mafia romance, maybe a captor-captive romance, maybe a serial killer romance, romances where you feel like at some point one of the couple is a threat to the other couple, or where, you know, there's usually a bit of non-consent involved in there. There's usually an element of sometimes revenge, sometimes violence. So yeah, so at the moment this doesn't, for me, categorise itself as a dark romance. It's not to say I don't love it, I absolutely adore it, it's a fantastic, fantastic book, but it's definitely not a dark romance. Even though Dorian kidnaps Farah and takes her off to his house, at no point did I think he was going to hurt her. There's no suggestion, personally, that I got, no vibe, that she was really under any threat from him. There was obviously something going on, there was obviously an ulterior motive, there was obviously something he wanted out of the situation, but I didn't feel like she was in any actual danger, and for me in a dark romance, I should feel a little bit like she's potentially in some danger, and I have read some dark romance before where, you know, the couple itself have been twisted, and I love it, but this isn't it for me. This is something different, where they share a dark past or they share kind of traumatic incidents, but it's not actually the love between them that is dark. Whether or not we get there eventually, I don't know, but as of yet, not a dark romance. Still brilliant though. So skipping forward a bit, Farah is now with Dorian, she's in his clutches and she's in his castle with his kind of bunch of merry men. I love his little crew. They're so cute. Walters, the cook, Murdoch, his kind of manservant, they're all so adorable and they're just such lovely little side characters. I love it when you've got a really gruff hero who doesn't want friends and doesn't want affection and doesn't want love, and yet he's surrounded by people who kind of low-key love him and low-key protect him and support him, even if he is really resistant and kind of dismissive of that. Is such a cute thing to happen. It's so sweet, and this book does it so well. You feel like his little gang would totally like die for him and stick up for him no matter what, and that's so adorable, and I love them so much. They really add to the book and they really kind of flesh it out, and they're just there going, the fact that we're still all here and we're still with him and we're still backing him up and supporting him means he can't be all bad, because otherwise we'd have probably left him. So I love that little element to it. They're really sweet. Dorian lays out his plan, why Farah's there. You find out more of his backstory, more of Farah's backstory. Dorian wants her to marry him. They're going to get married so that he can help her to kind of reclaim her past, and he can help take control over it all and pay a debt to Dugan that he feels he owes him, to make sure she's looked after and make sure she's safe. And so they're going to get married, but there are conditions, as there always are in these kind of things, and it's good. It's good and dramatic. I loved that scene. I mean, I think I loved every scene, but I really liked the scene where they were negotiating what the marriage was going to look like. One thing I really loved about Farah's character was how she's not afraid of Dorian, even though she really kind of maybe should be. And I love how he's listing all these things that he wants out of the wedding and he wants out of the marriage, and she's like, well, that's fine, but I want something too. And she takes no crap from him, and she's really firm. I mean, the bath scene, that's what I'm going to say, the bath scene was fantastic. All of it, right up to the very end. I loved it. It is so hard to talk about this book without spoiling. Do you have any idea how hard it is not to just say what's happening? It's nigh on impossible. Ugh, sod it. This is a very spoilery review because I'm just obsessed. But anyway, Farah is great. She is really strong, and I know people use the word strong a lot, but she really is, and she has no real reason to be. But she's just not afraid of him, and she doesn't back down. And I think with a character and a hero like that, that's really important. You can't give him the upper hand all the time. You've got to have a little bit of power, and she realises she does have a bit, and she uses it. And I like that. That's good. But then, the reason why he doesn't want to have a proper marriage, and the reason why he doesn't want to have all of the stuff that goes with it, and you find out, about his hang-ups and his deep psychological issues that you can totally understand why he would have them after all the horrors he's been through and the kind of pain he's been through. At this point, I was completely smitten. I was completely in love with him. I adored him. My heart had melted. I was completely owned by Dorian Blackwell, and I would have died for him at this point. Just when people say they don't understand kind of darker heroes and anti-heroes and how people can fall for them, read this one and you'll realise he is so adorable. And you realise that so much of his front and his kind of violent facade is just covering up this massive heap of vulnerability and this massive backlog of trauma and pain and misery, and he's had to build this character who's so scary and so evil to kind of protect himself against all of that. And it is a weakness of mine, is villains with a heart of gold. So he is literally perfect. I love him. Their wedding night, whew, hello. I've read a lot of sex scenes in my years of reading romance novels. I have read so many. So if one still manages to surprise me and get my pulse racing a bit, you've done something right. Their wedding night is just, when he tells her to take off her dress, someone quick, fetch me my smelling salts. It was ridiculous. It was amazing. It was the perfect blend of him being domineering, controlling, but still kind of vulnerable, and her still having to kind of take the lead a bit. So although he is definitely the one with all of the power and all of the strength and all of the control, she is still having to guide him and nudge it along. And it was just so well written. I mean, I feel like I should have read every possible permutation of every kind of romance in history. So when an author still manages to surprise me and excite me and make me want to read more because it's something that I don't feel like I've seen it done this way or this well before, just, I salute you, Kerrigan Byrne. I salute you. So we're basically now caught up to where I've got to so far. We're at about chapter 15. They are married. It's a touchy relationship at best. The sex is hot, but, you know, it's also full of pitfalls, and it's a minefield of, you know, drama and emotion and all the rest of it. It's all good. For halfway through the book, it's a cracking place to be at. I feel like so much has happened. And I was saying to my husband, it feels like there are so many little things going on and little plot points and little character things, but none of it feels too much. You don't feel like you're overwhelmed. Everything is so well laid out and well explained. It's just so easy to absorb. And really, I cannot believe I've read 212 pages, because it doesn't feel like I have at all. Well, actually, 216 pages I'm on, and it does not feel like I read that much. It flew by. I was a bit gutted, actually, because I've got less than half to go. However, I want to talk about one massive, potentially spoilery thing. Now, I will say I've not read this book before, so I don't actually know at this stage, and she could surprise me. But based on books I've read that are similar to this, and based on little hints that the book has dropped so far, I am assuming that Dorian is Dugan. Like, grown up. I'm assuming that in the prison, Dorian died and Dugan didn't, and Dugan assumed his identity. That is what I am assuming, based on a few things. Mostly, I mean, fair, I'd have assumed that anyway, just based on the fact that why would you have Dugan in the first chapter and then him not be the hero in the rest of the book? Why would you have that connection at the very beginning? I'm assuming that Kerrigan wants you to think that, but I could be wrong. Maybe she thinks it's going to be a surprise. Maybe it is a surprise to some people, but for me, that is definitely where I think this book is going. And there was a line somewhere where Dorian said he loves you to Farah, and she went, loved, he loved me. And you're like, no, he means it in the present tense, because it is him. He is Dugan. He is Dugan grown up and scarred and beaten and, you know, whatever else. And he is now assuming this other identity. I am assuming that's where this book is going. If that is not where this book is going, I'll be very, very surprised. But that's where I'm at the moment. And I have to say, that is one of my favourite tropes in every historic romance ever. I do have another book. This one, The Scandalous Miss Howard by Nan Ryan, which does something very, very similar, where the heroine has a kind of a sweetheart. He goes off to war. He doesn't come back. He dies in the war. And then a mysterious stranger arrives in town, and he's like really hot, and he seduces her, but it turns out that they are the same person. So it's one of my favourite tropes of all time. So if that's where it's going, then this book may just become my favourite book ever written. Ever. We will have to see. I've got to go and do some work now, but I'll be back later with a bit more of an update. Now I've got my online exercise class in a few minutes, but I just wanted to pop on and talk about the next few chapters of The Highwayman. So I'm up to chapter 20, and it's just, so in 4 chapters so much happens. So we've arrived in London, we've been in a gunfight, they've had to have, you know, kind of a brawl with some smugglers on the dock. Dorian in protective husband mode is just the best thing in the whole world ever. I adore it. We've re-met Sir Carlton again. We've bumped into him again, and they've been to prison, and Farah's real identity has been revealed to the world. So this book, no one could possibly accuse this book of being slow. It's so fast-paced, it's so jam-packed of action and plot and But in between all of that, there's deep emotion and there's great character, and I think that's what really sells it for me, is that yes, there's an awful lot happening, but it doesn't feel rushed, it doesn't feel like it's crammed in, it doesn't feel any of it is superfluous to requirement, it just all feels really perfect, perfectly pitched, the whole thing. And then, right at the end of chapter 19, just before we get, so 278 pages in, my theory was right. I kind of knew it was going to be. Like, I would have been very, very surprised if that theory hadn't have been correct, but at the same time, it was nice to get it confirmed. And I was surprised they did it that early on, because that's usually the kind of big reveal you do right at the very end. And I know we have only got a teeny tiny bit to go, but I did think, I'm interested to see then what the rest of this bit is. Like, why is there all of this left to go? What's going to happen? It is so good. I really can't get over this. I almost don't want to finish it, because when it's finished it's done, and then I won't have it anymore to read for the first time ever. You never get your first read of a book again, do you? That's the problem. Sometimes I like to leave books for years and years and years before I reread them again, so that they are almost new to me. But I think this one's just so good that I will never forget certain key parts of this, so it will never be new again. So I'm going to savour these last 100 pages. So there you have it. When I left off, we had just finished chapter 19. I'm just trying to find it. Just trying to get there again. So we just finished chapter 19, and the big reveal that just happened. And Dorian doesn't handle the reveal well. He legs it. And can I just say, I had forgotten about this until we talked about it in the book club chat last night. He leaves her tied up again. Like, it's just like, does he just keep forgetting? Just like, run off, leave her. And poor Murdoch keeps coming in and finding her tied to various pieces of furniture. You're probably meant to be cross with him, but I just find it really, really funny. It just amused me. It's just like, for God's sake, man, untie the woman. It's like bondage 101. You don't leave them there. It made me laugh. I loved it when she goes to find him after the big reveal, and kind of they repeat the dialogue from when they were children. It kind of goes full circle right back to the moment when she's going to him, why are you crying? And she looks after him, and oh man, it was just so beautiful. I was so glad I was right. I mean, I would have been gutted, I think. I know a lot of people in the chat the other night were saying they weren't sure, they didn't know which way it was going to go, they were kind of a bit on the fence, was that going to be what the story was going to be or not? And I think I would have been absolutely devastated if that hadn't been the way the plot went. And then we have your typical damaged, wounded man moment. You get one of these in like every historical romance book, or every romance book that has a kind of damaged, traumatized, scarred hero. You usually get this moment where they think, no, she's better off without me. I'll just damage her, I'll just taint her, I'll just, you know, rub off on her and ruin her life. And they push her away. And I know some people hate this trope, and it's not that I enjoy the trope, it's frustrating, but I can totally understand that mindset of, and I think it's a very realistic, very genuine mindset that people do have, is thinking that they are not worthy of the love of whoever they love, and that they will only bring them pain and misery, and so it's better for them. And I think making decisions for the person, especially from the man's point of view, I think is quite common, probably more common than we realise. And so it's a trope that, although it does frustrate me, it's also one that I totally get and I understand and I can kind of roll with. So she's shipped off to her family home, and Dorian doesn't go, he leaves her alone, and we have a bit of time with them apart. And I do love the fact that Farah doesn't take that line down, and I personally, I mean, I don't know how other people felt about it, I personally never for a moment thought she was actually going to go and find a lover or move on from Dorian. I think the implication is that she's waited this long for him, she's probably not going to give up now. And I also don't think she would just suddenly stop being in love with him and decide, oh, sod it, I'll go and find someone else. But I think she knows that will get a reaction out of him, and I think that's very canny, and it's very aware to go, he's not going to like this, he's going to come get me if I say this. So I don't personally think that she actually intended to move on from Dorian and her marriage, or kind of break her marriage vows, but I like the fact that she uses that against him and is like, dude, if you don't go here and sort me out, then I'll sort myself out. It's just like, yeah, you tell him, girly, You make him work for it, because I think sometimes with that kind of man, that's how you've got to be. You've got to take matters into your own hands, and you've got to be thing. And I do love the fact that Dorian does let just go running. I think that's very, very good. With less than 100 pages to go, with like 80 pages to go, Kerrigan still manages to get one last twist in it. And I know from the chat the other night, a lot of people didn't see it coming. A lot of people thought that this person was gone and we weren't going to see them again. I had an inkling. I have a rule in all TV, dramas, thrillers, books, you name it. If they don't show you the dead body, they ain't dead. Rule number one. And believe me, go to every horror film you can think of. If you don't see the actual dead body of the person, identifiable, not burned or drowned or hands cut off or whatever, headless or whatever, if they don't show you the actual body, then they ain't dead and they're coming back. Brace yourself. And this was very true in this bit. And it made me realise, as we were talking about yesterday, that I personally predicted an awful lot of the twists in this book. So I predicted the hidden identity. I predicted how it was going to go in the court with Farah when she's fighting for identity and the whole trick question scenario. And I predicted the end scene with the baddie and how that was going to go down. And I know some people would say that's really bad, that it's predictable, and it's bad that I could kind of read where it was going to go and that, you know, maybe the book didn't surprise me. But for me, what that tells me is Kerrigan Byrne is 100% on my wavelength. Because I'm sat here reading this book going, the most satisfying way for this book to go now is for this to happen. And the best way for this book, my preferred way for the next scene to happen, would be like this. And the natural conclusion to draw from this moment is this. And the fact that Kerrigan Byrne did all of those things that I thought should happen in the book means that she's not predictable. She's 100% on my wavelength, and that is why I love her. Because I feel like this book feels like I designed it. It feels like it came out of my head. It didn't, obviously. I couldn't write this kind of stuff. I couldn't write anything. But I think that's why I kind of connected with it so much, because if I was going to sit and plot out a romance novel and go, this is all the steps and the beats that I want it to follow, and this is kind of how I want it to go, this is what I would have come up with. Almost exactly. It's like Kerrigan went into my head, pulled out a book I didn't even know existed, and wrote it, and then I got to read it. It was a groundbreaking thing for me to just go, this feels like it was made specifically for me. It feels like it touches every single part of me that I need it to reach. And I mean, there's even like bondage in it. You never get that in historical romances ever. It was just, oh, hands down, Kerrigan. This is my new favourite book of all time. I might be buried with this book, I'm not even kidding you. I just want maybe on my gravestone, you know, the only book that ever mattered was this one. It's so good. I loved the kind of ending. I loved that Farah didn't really need saving. She kind of was quite capable of saving herself, but you've got to have the moment where the hero swoops in and tries to rescue you, right? That's just the best part of any romance novel ever, full stop, is those final moments when the couple finally throw all of their problems out the window, they get over all of their drama, they get rid of the conflict, and they just come together. And it was so beautifully done in this book. And kind of Dorian's reaction to Farah and the fact that he nearly lost her, and the fact that, you know, he drove her away and she still wants him and she still loves him, and oh my god, it was so beautiful. It was so lovely. And it just, I don't really get emotional and cry at books. That doesn't really happen, but I do get quite, I get the woman fuzzies here, where I apparently have a heart, who knows. And just, you know, things like him not wanting to let her go are just so, they're so lovely. And obviously he's had this whole thing with touching and not wanting to be touched, and then he's kind of like, no, touch me, because we need to get past that. I want you to help me get past that. It's just so good. So good. And I think the most important thing that I took away from the end, because I saw a lot of people saying that they don't like the whole, she has to save his soul, and, you know, she has to make him into a good guy because he's a bad guy. And for me, that was definitely not what I took away from this book. For me, he's always deep down been a good guy. But that good guy has been buried and hidden and downtrodden under all of this trauma and this kind of the troubles he's been through and the horrors that he's seen and lived through. And he's had to build up this whole facade and this character of this evil man to help him survive in this world that he's found himself in. But deep down in there is still the really cute little boy who just wanted to be with his fairy and protect her and look after her. And I think it's one of my favourite tropes of all time in romance novels, is showing someone they are worthy of love, even if they've done stuff wrong, because everybody does stuff wrong. Everybody makes bad decisions. Everybody, you know, does horrible things in their lives. None of us are perfect, but we're all worthy of love. And Farah just kind of taking Dorian and going, you are worthy of my love, without changing, without bettering yourself, without becoming a better man. You are brilliant and perfect just as you are, and I love you just the way you are. That's my kind of romance novel. And then the epilogue is just the cutest thing in the whole world. Seeing the kids, seeing the whole fairy references coming back, you know, the idea that he's so big and gruff and beastly to everybody, but to the kids he's just so adorable. I just love it. I mean, as you can probably gather, I adore this book. It was absolutely perfect. I could talk about this pretty much forever. And I will fight anybody who doesn't like this book. It's so hard. I thought I was protective of Julia Quinn books, and then I read this one, and now this is a hill I will die on. This is the best book ever written. End of. Yeah, I can't wait to read the next one. The next one's The Hunter. Apparently that's slightly darker. It's about an assassin. I should probably say I still never really class this as a dark romance. It is definitely a historical romance that has darker themes. It has kind of, you know, some very, very, very gritty, nasty bits, but it doesn't count for me personally as a dark romance, because at no point did I think Farah was at risk from Dorian. At no point did I think he was actually going to hurt her or indeed do anything horrible to her. He obviously had her best interests at heart, and he obviously loved her and was protecting her from almost day one. So for me, that doesn't qualify for what I consider to be a dark romance. For me, it has to be more kind of twisted and taboo within the relationship itself. This is just a very deep, gritty romance where it, you know, the issues they're dealing with are, yes, dark, but the romance isn't, for me anyway. Tying someone to a bedpost because you don't want to be touched does not a dark romance make, in my humble opinion. I know some people disagree with me on that, and I know some people have different kind of qualifiers for what dark romance is, and that's fine. Each to your own. But quite frankly, when you read dark romances where people have like locked people in cages and, you know, treated them as if they're household pets, that don't classify as dark. It just doesn't. So there you have it. Kind of a reading vlog-ish. Sorry if that wasn't great. I've never done one of these before and I'm working on it. So I am really looking forward to reading The Hunter. This is book 2. I know everybody says it's really, really good as well. It's got some serious legwork to do to be as good as The Highwayman, but I think it could be up for the challenge. I do love a good assassin falling in love with the victim story. Sometimes I wonder why I'm so twisted. Maybe I was dropped on my head a lot as a child. Who knows? But anyway, it's been a pleasure talking to you about The Highwayman. I've loved every minute of it. I cannot wait to reread it, frankly. And I will be back very shortly with another video. Thanks for watching. Bye!